Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the San Martin SN0138GW. This watch is available from skbwatches.com for €200. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in a hard shell travel case which is housed inside this white cardboard box, so I'll take it out and show it to you. So this is the hard shell travel case. On the lid it's embossed with the San Martin hex emblem to a good standard. Has a zip around the perimeter. So I'll show you the interior. The interior is fully upholstered with green velour fabric to a good standard. And in the base the watch sits on a padded pillow cushion which is also green velour fabric upholstered to a good standard. So San Martin deserve credit here because this is a low tier price point piece at €200. They could have taken the default option of using a plastic or cardboard watch box at this price point, but this dark green vinyl PU leather is very aesthetically pleasing, flawless stitching throughout, it's good quality and it's very aesthetically pleasing, so I like it. So with regards to the items that come with the watch, this is the owner's instruction manual, clear concise diagrams, the instructions are in English and it details the operation of the movement used, which is the Seiko NH35A automatic. This is the plastic warranty card that comes to the watch. On the reverse, the terms and conditions of the 2-year international warranty are detailed. There's space to fill in the date of purchase, reference number, and it's stamped with San Martin Watch Company. Now I want to give due credit to San Martin here because often low-tier Chinese watches at this price point are covered by a 12-month international warranty. To get 2 years of warranty is very good. This is the plastic tag that comes to the watch. It says San Martin with a hex emblem on both sides, as you can see. And one also gets this 1.6mm flathead screwdriver made from solid 316L grade stainless steel. Nailed shank is very grippy and tactile and it's correctly proportioned. Nice chamfer to the end of it so it doesn't have any sharp edges, and this does suffice in order to resize the screw pin links in the oyster style bracelet of the piece. It's made from solid stainless steel, it's not mild steel which has been nickel plated, so it's good quality. And lastly, one also gets this spring bar tool. Again, this is made from solid 316L grade stainless steel, not mild steel which has been nickel plated. Grippy and tactile nailed shank, it doesn't feel sharp but it is very grippy, and we've got a 2-prong fork at one end and a push pin at the other end, so good to get this included with the watch. So good quality presentation, good quality accessories, and also 2-year international warranty is very impressive. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, the SN0138GW is clearly an homage to the Tudor Black Bay 54, so very similar proportions, but the thing to note is this is available with 3 bezel colour options, black, green and red respectively. Of the 3 colour options, I think this green version is the best looking. So we have a 37mm case diameter, but the thing I want you to be aware of is the bezel is larger. The diameter of the bezel is 38mm, so it's 1mm larger than the head of the piece. So although this is a 37mm piece, it does wear more like a 38 and it does visually look more like a 38 because the bezel overhangs the left hand flank by 0.5mm and the right hand flank by 0.5mm. So 38mm bezel, 37mm case respectively. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 45.7mm, a thickness of 13mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The oyster style bracelet tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to 16mm at the 2-button push micro adjustment clasp. The clasp is signed to high standard with an embossed San Martin hex emblem, which is matte blasted effect to the background, and the San Martin is mirror polished, so it's very aesthetically pleasing. Also the edges, the facets of the hex are mirror polished, so it is very aesthetically pleasing. Brushed satin finish to the body, and that complements the brushed satin finishing to the flanks, and we've got a nice large mirror polished bevel which marks the transition between the body and the flanks, and it is finished to a very good standard. So I'll test out the ratcheting mechanism in the micro adjustment clasp, but it is correctly proportioned and also very well finished, beautiful luster to it. We have a double dome sapphire crystal with blue tinted AR coating on the underside, and the blue tinted anti-reflective coating does an outstanding job of reducing the glare and the highly reflective nature of the gilt mirror polished applied indices and the gilt mirror polished snowflake handset. The dial proportions are correct and also the applied indices are correct. It does look very similar to the Black Bay 54, which this is an homage to. Also the snowflake handset are correctly proportioned. Often low tier Chinese brands have a tendency to undersize and proportion the hands used. For example, they're too short, but if you look at the pencil minute hand, you can see the tip of the minute hand extends all the way to the minute ticks on the gilt chapter ring. Also, if you look at the proportion of the second hand, it is long enough to extend all the way to the minute ticks. So they've got that correct, which is good. The Snowflake hour hand is also correctly proportioned. The handset does look very similar to the Black Bay 54, which this is an homage to. With regards to the printing on the dial, it's high definition and crisp. It's not too thick and blurry. The font used to the printing of the text at 6 o'clock is nice and fine. So it's sharp, it's high definition, the legibility is good. And we simply have 2 lines of text, automatic and 200 meters equals 660 feet. So just the right amount of information. Often low-tier Chinese brands have a tendency to over-brand and print too much text and specification on the dial. 2 lines is just right. Automatic with the water resistance rating looks correct. The dial looks balanced with simply the gilt San Martin hex emblem at 12 o'clock. Chapter ring is very aesthetically pleasing. The gilt contrasts very well with a matte black dial, and San Martin have made the correct decision by not using a glossy black dial or sunburst dial. The matte black dial does look very similar to the Black Bay 54, which this is an homage to, and it does give the piece a vintage aesthetic. Now, with regards to the bezel insert, it's matte ceramic, so it does look aesthetically very similar to an aluminium bezel insert as used on the Rolex Kermit, for example. And they've made the correct decision by not using a glossy green bezel because that would look better for a Starbucks homage. This is an homage to the Black Bay 54. Now, of course, the Black Bay 54 is only available with a black aluminium bezel insert. They don't produce it with a green or red, but this piece is available with black, green and red bezel inserts respectively. So the matte finish does look good because it does look like an aluminium bezel insert as per the Rolex Kermit, but of course it's harder and more scratch resistant, and that's the benefit. They've done a very good job of engraving the ceramic and also inlaying it with paint. So nice high definition, crisp Arabic numerals. They don't look too thick, the font is correct, and it does look very similar to a Black Bay 54 bezel insert with the minute markers. The bezel itself is made from solid 316L grade stainless steel, which is coin edge finished. Now again, they've made the correct decision because they've matte finished the bezel. It's got a matte finish to it which looks brushed satin finished or alternatively bead blasted rather than mirror polishing the teeth to the coin edge teeth. This gives it a more tool watch aesthetic and also a vintage aesthetic. Had they mirror polished the teeth, it would have looked too shiny and reflective, and I think this does look very well proportioned. It's not too low profile and it's not too thick either. The height of the bezel is correct. Also, the slight overhang is the correct decision because 37mm is a small head of the piece, as per the Black Bay 54. But it does give the impression of being a 38 due to the 1mm larger diameter of the bezel. So proportions are good. 0.5mm of overhang on the left and the right hand flank is okay. It doesn't project too far. With regards to the finishing to the head of the piece, this is outstanding. San Martin watches often have a sharp undercut to the undercut of the flanks of the case, and they also have sharp corners on the tips of the lugs. But I want to give credit where credit's due here. There are no sharp edges to the left and the right hand flank of the case. They've been deburred and chamfered very well. So this indicates San Martin have increased their quality control and their finishing levels because the case on this piece has been deburred and chamfered very well. No sharp edge to the undercuts of the case, which is common with San Martin pieces. The tips of the lugs have also been chamfered and deburred. All 4 corners to the tips of the lugs don't have sharp corners. So they've improved the quality of the finishing. Nice brushed satin finish to the top of the curved lugs, and that complements the longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the flanks. So the flanks of the case have a nice fine grained satin finish, and I really like the finishing. The satin finishing doesn't look rough or coarse, it's got a nice fine grained finish and a beautiful luster as a result. Now, this uses female pivoted end links as per the Black Bay 54, which this is an homage to. Let's test the execution. Articulates smoothly. They've made the correct decision by not using male end links here because this does have a 45.7 compact lug to lug measurement, so clearly it's intended to best fit collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, and the female pivoted end links give a nice snug fit. So they articulate smoothly, they don't feel stiff or kink, but they don't have excessive lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play. Very good very good end link execution. Let's check the other side for continuity. Nice and smooth. Articulates freely. doesn't feel stiff or kink, so it's good. Plenty of articulation. It allows the end link to articulate beneath the tip of the lugs to get a nice snug fit, which is good. Feels very similar to a Black Bay 58 or Black Bay 54, but doesn't have excessive play. Lateral, longitudinal, side to side, up and down play. Tolerances are good, build quality are good. Now bear in mind, this is a low tier piece costing €200. It is an example to other low tier Chinese brands of how to get build quality, tolerances and finishing correct. So they work very well. Bezel has the bracelet has a beautiful luster to it, longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the top side and underside, and that contrasts with the flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. I'm pleased to see screw pins used in the bracelet rather than push pins, which would have been a cost-cutting measure. The oyster style bracelet articulates freely, doesn't have any stiff links, doesn't kink, which is good. No sharp edges to the top edge or the lower edge of the flanks. Often it's the case with San Martin pieces, they do have sharp edges on the oyster style bracelets on the top edge or the lower edge, but this one doesn't. It's been deburred and chamfered very well. Bracelet doesn't pull arm hair, articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff, and it's got the correct taper. 20:16 is perfection personified. Let's check the other side for continuity. Again, beautiful luster to the brushed satin finishing, which is longitudinal on the top side and underside. Flawless mirror polishing to the flanks. No sharp edge to the top edge or the low edge, which is good. It's been deburred and chamfered very well. Doesn't pull arm hair and articulates very freely. Doesn't rattle. So this is an example to other low-tier Chinese brands of how to get an oyster-style bracelet with screw-pin links correct. Doesn't rattle. Doesn't have excessive lateral, longitudinal, side-to-side or up and down play. It feels very good. The build quality, quality control, finishing are all outstanding. This is a good quality oyster style bracelet. So let's test the screw down crown execution. Solid 316L grade stainless steel crown, coin edge finished, nice mirror polished chamfer to it, so no sharp edges to the tips of the teeth. It is correctly proportioned. It does look very similar to the proportions of the crown used on the Black Bay 54, which this is an homage to, and it's signed with the San Martin hex emblem, matte bead blasted effect to the background, and the San Martin is mirror polished and the hex is mirror polished, so very good quality engraving to the emblem. Let's test the screw down execution. Silky smooth. This is sublime screw down crown execution. They deserve credit because this is a low tier piece costing €200, but the screw down crown is silky smooth. Minimal number of turns required to fully unscrew it. It does feel very smooth. There's a perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. 200 meters is strong specification, and there's 2 rubber O-ring gaskets, 1 rubber O-ring inside the stainless steel crown and a second rubber O-ring gasket inside the stainless steel crown tube, and those 2 hermetic seals provide 200 meters. So silky smooth, feels very good to unscrew. So when it's fully unscrewed, we're now in the manual wind position, so one can manually wind the Seiko Caliber NH35A automatic to its maximum 41-hour power reserve. Now, the negative of this being NH35A versus NH38 is we do have a phantom date setting position. As this is a no date piece with no date complication, I would prefer if San Martin used the NH38 because that would delete the phantom date setting position. This does have a date wheel which is present beneath the dial, so pulling it out to the first click position is the date complication. And when you rotate the crown anti-clockwise, you can hear the date clicking over because it's a quick set date, and you can also feel it on the crown when you rotate it anti-clockwise. So this still does have the date wheel beneath the dial, and you can hear it clicking over even though there's no date window. It's a shame that they didn't use the NH38 because that would have deleted it. This uses the 35A, which has a date. But pulling it out to the second click position hacks the movement. If you look at the second hand, you can see it's now stopped dead. So it's possible to set the time precisely to the second with the Seiko NH35A automatic. So we're now in the time setting position. Feels very smooth, clockwise and anti-clockwise. Nice light gearing to it, minimal friction, good meshing in the gearing. Feels nice and robust, solid and reliable. So it feels the same, both clockwise and anti-clockwise, cycling through the 12 hours. And I do like the feeling of the NH35A. It feels reliable and robust. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click and that restarts the movement. You can see the second hand begins to sweep around the dial once again at 3 Hz. So let's test screwing it back down. Instant thread pickup. This is perfect screw down crown execution. So there's a perfect interface between the internal thread of the stainless steel crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. Quality control, build quality and tolerances are all excellent. They could not improve upon this screw down crown. It is outstanding. They deserve full credit for it. So let's test the bezel execution. Now just bear with me, I'll start off with it at bang on 60 or 12 o'clock. So 120 click unidirectional bezel as one would expect. Coin edge finish to it. Nice loud audible clicks. I love the sound of it. You can hear the ratcheting mechanism, the click spring engaging with 120 grooves beneath the stainless steel bezel. So nice loud audible clicks, heavy clicks. In terms of resistance, it's medium. Doesn't feel too heavy or too light. Feels very similar to the bezel execution on the SN0138G, which is the Submariner date homage, which you may be familiar with. Also feels very similar to the SN004G, which is the Black Bay 58 homage. It's got that medium resistance, rather like a Seiko 5KX, for example. Not too tight, not too loose. Feels even all the way through the 360 degrees. Doesn't get tighter or looser, which is good. It feels consistent. Nice loud audible clicks. I like the heavy feeling and also the heavy sound. So they feel solid. They feel like nice heavy clicks, rather like a Seiko 5KX. No lateral side-to-side play whatsoever. No back play whatsoever. So this feels nice and tight. So the medium resistance feels good, but in terms of play, none whatsoever. Let's just check the alignments. One more click. Bang on. 12 o'clock. The Lume Pippin triangle perfectly aligned with the 12 o'clock index on the dial and the 60-minute tick on the gilts chaptering. San Martin deserve credit. This is a low tier piece costing €200 and it has 10 out of 10 bezel execution. Even all the way through the 360 degrees, no lateral side-side play, no back play, perfect alignment, bang on the centre. So this is an example to other low tier Chinese brands of how to get bezel execution correct. Very impressive. To put it into perspective, this is one of the best bezel executions I've experienced. It is as good as the very best of the SN017G, which is the Submariner date homage, and it is as good as the very best of the SN004G, which is the Black Bay 58 homage, pieces I've previously reviewed. This SN0138GW does have one of the best bezel executions. Medium resistance, but it feels nice and tight without any play. An example to other brands of how to get it right. They deserve credit. So let's look at the caseback. Solid 316L grade stainless steel caseback, concentric CNC lathe tool machine to the centre. So it's sterile as per a Tudor Black Bay 54. And it does look very aesthetically pleasing. Coin edge finishing to the circumference and its concentric CNC lathe tool machined to the outer section, which is beveled as you can see. Very low profile for an NH35A automatic powered piece. It's nice and flat. It doesn't have a bubble back case back profile to it, so this does fit nice and snug to the wrist, and it's only 13mm, which is very good, bearing in mind it has a double dome sapphire crystal. I like the way the concentric CNC lathe tool machining to the stainless steel catches the light and refracts it. Very aesthetically pleasing. It does look very similar to a Black Bay 54 caseback, which this is an homage to. The solid end links are a good tight fit to the head of the piece, and they're deburred and chamfered very well. No sharp edges, and we've got standard stainless steel spring bars, so quality of the finishing to the end links is very good. Now with regards to the finishing to the underside to the head of the piece, it's brush satin finish to a good standard, beautiful lustre to it, nice chamfers to the flanks. And again, this is something I think San Martin have improved upon, and they deserve credit because previously they tended to have a sharp edge. The undercuts to the flanks of the case on many San Martin heads of pieces, they had sharp edges here, both on the left and the right hand flank. But this one has a noticeably larger chamfer. You can actually see the chamfer catch the light. And it's deburred very well because when you rub your thumb or index finger along it, it doesn't have that characteristic sharp, crisp edge that often San Martin cases have. They've actually increased the chamfer. They've made it larger. I can actually see it's a wider chamfer. Let's just check the crown guard side for comparison. Again, you can visually see it. The lower edge of the flank, it often has a sharp edge, but this one has a larger chamfer to it. I can see that they've increased the depth of the chamfer to deburr it better. So the quality of finishing in terms of the chamfering and deburring on this SN SN0138GW is better. They are refining it, they are improving. The tips of the lugs also have been chamfered, so they don't have the characteristic sharp points that often the four corners of San Martin cases have. So this is one of the better finished San Martin pieces. Definitely the deburring is of a higher level. They have refined the quality control and the finishing. So let's look at the clasp. So beautiful luster to the body, brushed satin finish longitudinally. Nice fine grained finish to it. Nice fine grained finish to the flanks on both the left and the right hand flank, as you can see. And the flat head screws are partially recessed into the flanks, so they don't stick out, they don't feel sharp, and they're mirror polished to a good standard. Nice large mirror polished bevel to the edge, which marks the transition. Doesn't have a sharp top edge, doesn't have a sharp low edge, and doesn't have sharp four corners. So again, quality of the finishing to this micro adjustment clasp is good. Doesn't have any sharp corners or edges anywhere. The undercuts are also deburred and chamfered very well. Nice light resistance to the two triggers, which are spring loaded, and it opens freely. Beautiful luster to the interior. It's brushed satin finish to the top side, underside and flanks to a good standard. Nice fine grained finish. Doesn't have sharp corners to the centre section, which is good. Let's check the hinge pins. Left hand hinge pin articulates freely. Doesn't feel stiff or kink. Doesn't have excessive play. Lateral, side to side, up and down or longitudinal play. Nice interference fit, which is a pleasant surprise. Let's check the centre hinge pin. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Let's check it for play. There isn't any. This is a pleasant surprise, nice and tight. Good interference fit. The pin feels nice and tight. Now it feels smooth, but doesn't have lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play. It is very good. Let's check the right hand hinge pin. Articulates freely, doesn't feel stiff or kink. Doesn't have excessive play. Lateral, longitudinal, side to side or up and down play. Very good. So all three hinge pins, left, centre and right, feel nice and tight. Again, this is an example to other low-tier Chinese brands of how to get this correct. This is a €200 price point piece. San Martin deserve credit because this is excellent build quality, quality control and tolerances. Three tight hinge pins. No reservations whatsoever about the long-term durability. This is how a solid milled stainless steel clasp should be done, with nice tight interference fits. It closes with a nice positive click. It opens freely. It doesn't feel stiff or kink. The tolerances are still good. It just doesn't have play. This is very good. So micro adjustment clasp, as you can see, it's now on its maximum extension. It's fully deployed and we have one full link. Now, in the absence of half links in the oyster style bracelet, it can be difficult to get the correct fit because sometimes adding or subtracting one full oyster style link doesn't give the correct fit. The bracelet will feel slightly too tight or slightly too loose. So they could refine this. They could improve the fit if they added a half link on the 6 o'clock and the 12 o'clock side. But in the absence of half links in the oyster style bracelet, the micro adjustment clasp does suffice because it provides one full link. So let's check it. It's now fully deployed. Nice, heavy, loud, audible clicks. Feels solid, robust and reliable. I like the heavy indexing. I prefer micro adjustment clasps to have good, solid clicking action. I don't like it when they're too fine and the ratcheting mechanism feels weak. This is heavily sprung loaded and you've really got to push in the trigger with your index finger or thumb hard in order to get it to deploy. So the spring loaded trigger feels robust and reliable and therefore durable long term. I'm just going to check it again. Nice, heavy, loud, audible clicks. Very good. It feels solid. I like the solid feeling of it, the robust feeling. Now, you can press it in with your index finger or thumb, but you've really got to press in the trigger hard. And as you can see, one full link of deployments. Excellent. I'm just going to push it in. Fantastic. Now it feels good. Now the thing to note is you see that trigger with a push engraved into it. You have to really press that in hard, either with your index finger or thumb. So you're not going to accidentally deploy it when on wrist by pressing it in against your wrist pressure. You really have to push it in hard and then it deploys. It deploys smoothly and it clicks in smoothly as well. Very good. In terms of play, minimal play. Build quality, tolerances, quality control are good. Doesn't have excessive longitudinal, lateral, side to side or up and down play. Heavy clicks. This is one of the better micro adjustment clasps I've experienced. The only negative to it really is the size, because I'll show this in the wrist shot, but you can see the proportions. It's quite a long clasp, quite thick and also quite wide. Now the bracelet taper is correct, 20-16 is perfection personified. But in terms of how thick it is and also how tall it is, it's a large micro adjustment clasp, but it does provide one full link of adjustment, which is good. I would say if you're a collector with a smaller wrist, you may need to consider the length of the clasp, because it could have some overhang for a 6 to 7 inch wrist, but for a larger 7 to 8 inch wrist, no problems whatsoever. The proportions look good. It's good. It's an excellent clasp. The execution is good. So I'll give you a wrist shot and we'll see how it fits on 8 inch wrist. Now, as you can see, I can easily slide 2 fingers beneath the bracelet and clasp when it's on its maximum extension, when it's fully deployed with a 1 link of extension. So this bracelet will easily fit up to even a 9 inch wrist. I've got an 8 inch wrist and there's plenty of room with it fully deployed. Even with 1 index finger, you can see plenty of length in the bracelet. So if you're a collector with a larger wrist of over 8 inches, you'll have no problems whatsoever. Plenty of links on the 6 and the 12 o'clock side. The bracelet will fit a minimum 6 inch wrist up to a maximum 9 inch wrist, and really 6 to 7 will be no problem. There are enough removable links on the 6 and the 12 o'clock side for 6 inch wrists. Wrist presence is good. It's surprisingly large wrist presence because it is only 47, but as I've detailed, the bezel overhangs. It's a 38mm bezel, so visually it looks and also feels like a 38 due to the bezel overhang. 0.5 millimeter of overhang on the left hand flank, 0.5 millimeter of overhang on the right hand flank. So it does have the same proportions as a Black Bay 54 at 37mm, but visually it looks more like a 38 because the bezel is 38. And it looks good. They've made the correct decision by not making the bezel 37. That would look undersized on a 37mm case. 0.5 millimeter of overhang is very slight. It doesn't project too far on the left or the right hand flank, but visually it looks more like a 38, so you get that additional wrist presence without it being too top heavy or bulky. The thing I like about it is it's 13mm, which is the perfect sweet spot. I often refer to 13 in my previous reviews because at 13mm this will easily slip underneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. It's not too tall, even though it has a double dome sapphire crystal, and 13 is very good. It feels very well balanced. 20-16 is the perfect taper for the oyster style bracelet. This is perfection personified. Beautiful luster to it, and as I've detailed, they made the correct decision by using female pivoted end links as per the Black Bay 54 rather than male end links, because you can see it allows the end link in the oyster style bracelet to articulate beneath the tips of the lugs. Nice snug fit. You don't get this large gap beneath the tips of the lugs, and the end link in the bracelet doesn't have a large gap because the female pivoted end link allows it to articulate. So nice snug fit. Comfort level is 10 out of 10. Incredibly comfortable piece. 147 grams with all the links in the oyster style bracelet. Now, I always refer to 150 grams as being the sweet spot, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist respectively. So it's 147, it's 3 grams below the sweet spot, but bear in mind this does have a lot of links in the oyster style bracelet, which would even fit up to a 9 inch wrist. So for a 6 to 7 inch wrist, you're going to be removing 5 or 6 links, and even for a 7 to 8 inch wrist, you're still going to be removing 3 to 4 links. That will reduce the heft even further, below 140 grams to circa 130 to 135. So the benefit of the lack of heft: comfort level is 10 out of 10, feel good factor is 10 out of 10. It looks good and it feels good. It has the perfect proportions with the bracelet and also the lug width, also thickness 13. Now, the thing to note is it does have a short lug to lug. It is a compact case at 45.7. 48mm is the sweet spot for all wrist sizes, 6 to 7 inch and also 7 to 8 inches respectively. At 45.7, you may find it too short if you have a larger wrist. For example, on my 8 inch wrist, the lug to lug measurement is okay, but it does feel like a compact case as per the Black Bay 54. I think they should slightly lengthen the case. 45.7 is short, but of course this is intended for collectors with a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches. So if you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist, the lug to lug will be perfect. the case will fit right, it won't be too long with overhang on the tips of the lugs. But for a 7 to 8 inch wrist you may find it to be slightly too short, and therefore the SN0138G, which is the Black Bay 58, would fit better. That has a longer case. So I think the proportions are good, the wrist presence is good, comfort level is 10 out of 10, and I think they've made the correct decision with all the proportions. 13 thick, 20mm lug width, and 37 case, but we've got a 38mm bezel, which looks good. Very aesthetically pleasing with the gilt snowflake hands and gilt applied indices, and also the matte green bezel does look good. Had they used a glossy green bezel as per a Starbucks, that would have fitted, this being a 54 Homage. The matte green does look more like a Rolex Kermit, with that vintage aesthetic of an aluminium bezel insert, even though it's ceramic. Good, beautiful lustre to it, nice large mirror polish chamfers. It's a very good looking piece. Comfort level's good, feel good factor is good, and the lack of heft is good. 147 feels very well balanced. Doesn't feel top heavy, doesn't feel too thick. So let's do a Lume test, and we'll see how the Lume performs when it's charged up to the absolute maximum. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This is stellar performance. San Martin deserve credit here because we're looking at a low-tier piece costing €200. Often low-tier Chinese brands use the cost-cutting measure of only applying 3 to 4 layers of BGW9 or C3 Superluminova. This is clearly 5 to 6 layers, which is the industry standard for good reason. It is the optimum number of layers. The exciter is glowing brightly in the BGW9 on the applied indices, the snowflake hands, and also the Lume pip on the ceramic bezel insert. Perfect colour tone match in daylight. It's got a nice patina peach tone to it when you look at the piece in daylight, which is good. There's a good colour tone match between the indices and the hands. They don't look lighter or darker. In the dark, we've also got a perfect colour tone match. The BGW9 looks the same white-blue tone as on the hands and also on the indices, as well as the Lume pip. All three places have the same colour of blue. The exciter is glowing very brightly. This is what 5 to 6 layers gives you in terms of performance, and it's stellar, really. They could not improve upon this. The benefit of using snowflake hands, as per the Black Bay 54, is it allows for a large plot, a large area, especially on the hour hand, which is the snowflake hand. You can see there's a good large area of 5 to 6 layers of BGW9 used, and it's really good. The legibility is good. With the absence of a date complication, we've got the perfect symmetry of the Black Bay 54 dial layout, which is similar to the Rolex Submariner Submariner Maxi dial layout. And the legibility, the symmetry is good, and the AR coating is also working very well. Just fantastic. 10 out of 10 performance, and this is €200, low tier piece, an example to other low tier Chinese brands of how to get it correct without any cost cutting measures. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. So this is powered by the Seiko NH35A automatic, which you'll all be familiar with. It's made in both Malaysia and Japan. San Martin are using the Malaysian version, but there's no difference in quality between the Malaysian and the Japanese made NH35As respectively. It has 24 joules. It runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It has hand winding and hacking, which use for complications, and they work very well. It also has a quick set date. Now, this is the negative of this piece. It has a phantom date setting position. As I've detailed, I prefer if San Martin used the Seiko NH38 version rather than the 35A, and that would delete the date complication and therefore delete the phantom date setting position. So there's 2 clicks on the crown. If this were NH38 powered, it would only have 1 click to hack the movement and set the time, but that's just something one has to live with. San Martin used the NH35A in both the no date and date versions of their watches. So it's a reliable, well proven workhorse movement. 41-hour power reserve is very good. Stated accuracy is -20 to +40 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. However, I'm pleased to report that San Martin are doing an excellent job of regulating the NH35As they're using. This one has been regulated to +6 seconds per day. +6 is actually within chronometer grade accuracy of -4 to +6, and it's certainly within the -20 to +40 stated accuracy of the NH35A. +6 is good. They're clearly regulating the movements in 5 positions to attain +6 per day. So accurate, reliable, build quality, quality control, materials are all very good. It's a reliable, well-proven workhorse movement, the correct choice for this piece, but it could only be further improved if it had the NH38 to delete the phantom date setting position, but the quality is good. It is the correct choice of movement at this price point, €200 in the low tier. One expects the NH35A or the NH38A respectively. No negatives to it whatsoever. It's one of my favourite movements. The only real negative one could say is the stutter or judder of the second hand, because it runs at the characteristic 3 Hz sweep, which stutters or judders. With a 4 Hz movement running at 28,800 vibrations per hour, the second hand has a smoother sweep. It sweeps around with a 4 Hz sweep. The 3 Hz gives it a stutter or judder. That's something one just has to live with, but really that is the only negative, and it's subjective, because for the majority of collectors, the 3 Hz stutter or judder of the second hand is negligible. It's not a concern. So I like it. I like the reliability of it, I like the accuracy, and also like 40 hours of power reserve. The hacking works well, the hand winding feels nice and smooth. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch meet 2 criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. So low tier piece, the price point is €200. Yes, this is unquestionably excellent quality, and yes, it is unquestionably excellent value at €200. This cannot be beaten. It's the best Tudor Black Bay 54 Homage. I like everything about it. There are no negatives to it whatsoever. San Martin deserve credit here because they have improved the finishing, the quality control. As I've detailed, this is one of the better finished San Martin pieces. Often they have a sharp undercut to the flanks. This does not have that problem. They've increased the chamfer on the undercut to the flanks. It doesn't have a sharp edge. They've also improved the quality of the deburring to the tips of the lugs. Doesn't have sharp corners, which is often a problem with San Martin pieces. The other notable upgrade to the finishing is the flanks. Often oyster-style bracelets by San Martin have a sharp edge to the the left or the right-hand flanks on the top edge and the low edge of the flanks. This does not have it. They've deleted it. It's got a good chamfer. So, quality of the finishing to the head of the piece and the bracelet is high level. And at €200, this is one of the best San Martin pieces they have ever made. Bezel execution is 10 out of 10. BGW9 is stellar performance. The screw down crown is silky smooth. Micro adjustment clasp works very well. No negatives to it whatsoever. I would not change anything about this piece. It is the perfect Black Bay 54 Homage. At €200, it cannot be beaten. I'm going to declare it a champagne watch for lemonade money. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the San Martin SN0138GW. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.